I'm going to call the March 15th, 2022 Commissioners' Special Meeting to order. Do we have any adjustments to the agenda?
I'm going to move to approve the agenda as presented.
A second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Do we have any public comment today? Hearing none.
Screens, you see anybody with that?
No.
All right, we'll move on to approve of our meeting minutes.
Move to approve the minutes of the March 12th March 2nd regular meeting as presented.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. A bid to open for the airport storm water drainage repairs.
This is very, very boring. Sorry.
Yeah.
I wouldn't slam a door then.
I guess I've been told I was boring before.
All right, so we have one bid. Let's see. This is from Gordon Contracting, Inc.
It does, Chair, it does reference stormwater drainage repairs, I hope.
Yep, stormwater drainage repairs phase 2.
Yeah, there's no indication on the outside, so. I should have the page number, I'm sorry.
Leroy, are you with us?
Well, yes,
Okay.
can't seem to make the video work, but I'm here.
Did you have an architect's estimate on what this should cost?
We had the independent fee assessment done with the Maine DOT person did that. So this is, stand by, let me get it.
Right there that you're looking at seem to be, you know, the ones that you just had right
Yeah.
there. Those are usually where, towards the end of that, where it's. Oh, right there.
Okay. All right, so the bid summary on it is $317,897.
317897.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
17897.
All right, so we may read that, right?
Yeah, we send that off to Jason Homiak, to Leroy and Jason, and they review it. One of the things they need to make sure that it fits within that assessment that, DOT assessment that Commissioner Clark was referencing.
So the assessment was due for just the engineering side. It wasn't, they didn't put a number together for the actual repair. The engineering was $104,632.04.
Or just the engineer?
Just the engineering.
So that's a third of, did you see the bid?
Yeah, it was, yeah, you said it was 300 and some, so yeah, it's a third of the bid. Add a third to the bid.
In other words, the cost of, oh, so it's a 400 and something?
Yes,
I see.
All right,
Is that an AIP project?
Yes,
Okay.
let's see. We're gonna take our ARP.
Yep.
Gonna be presenting a check to the town of Wayne. ARP. That's a big check.
Got it right there, that's a big check. We did that intentionally, gonna delay the payment, yeah.
Let's come right over here. And let's see. Is that? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, okay, there we go. One more. Thanks.
Okay, folks, congratulations.
This is tremendous.
Well, you gotta give them the check, right?
Smaller version.
Did you get the other one?
I have not got the other one yet.
It was mailed, so it's probably,
It's in the mail.
yeah, I guess they probably didn't send it.
Might wanna take
Probably
that
never
with
thought,
you.
yeah.
You might wanna take that one with
Yeah,
you.
yeah. Yeah, you might want to hold this one collateral.
Well, thank you very much, Commissioner.
Thank you for coming.
This
Yeah, glad to see that it's.
worked out very well.
fruition.
And we are on our way, I believe.
Good.
And a special thanks from the people who live in the more remote portions of town.
Lewis Road is actually one of those that will be wired out.
Well, congratulations. We're glad we could help.
Do we have John from Mission Broadband?
I am here. Can you hear me?
Can you give us an update?
I can. So we had, I think you have in your packet the standard
On this list.
reports. So I won't necessarily go through those, but I do want to give an update on RBAC and the NTIA grant award that has happened. So just, I think we mentioned it last time, NTIA, the grant was due or came due, or I should say, was awarded just a few days before we talked about RBAC. And so we continued down the road with RBAC to understand, where, commissioners are at and all of, as far as, their project goes. The NTIA award came through, which is good news for the 6 and 7 towns in that area. And so since our last meeting with Mission Broadband has had a couple of meetings with Connect Maine, as well as with some of the towns that were involved. So we have a better understanding of what the NTIA grant actually will do. And working with CCI, the CCI is telling the grant, I should say itself, is CCI is saying they'll fully cover all of the towns involved. So what does that mean for RBAC and then the ARP money that we talk about? The ARP money is federal funding, NTIA is federal funding, and so the immediate concern is you can't overbuild federal funding with federal funding, right? That's been true for years, and it's come true now with the NTIA grant. So RBAC understands that. They've looked at it and said, okay, we've had conversations with them as well over the last couple of weeks. And so where it stands, commissioners, is there's no action that needs to be taken today. The towns are continuing to work with Connect Maine. When I say the towns, the NTIA towns, all of them, continuing to work with Connect Maine, continuing to work with Consolidated to understand, some of the nuances and making sure that everybody understands what's going to happen. So RBAC is just simply taking a step back right now. And again, like I said, there's no action that needs to be taken today, because if you remember last time, the vote that you took was based on certain parameters coming to effect, some of that financing. And so we're going to meet with them in another month. They're going to continue again. They themselves will also be meeting with Connect Maine and the other towns, as well as Consolidated, to understand, do they continue, or if they continue, what does it look like? So that we'll know more in about a month, but I just want to give you an update on from the RBAC side of things.
Sure.
And answer. Yep.
Sure. NTIA grant awards, was RBAC considered one entity or 2 towns?
Both towns. Yeah, it was put in as individual towns. So there's actually 7 towns is my understanding for the whole NTIA grant.
So of the 7, Brooklyn, Sedgwick, the RBAC consortium is 2 of the 7.
2 of the 7, yes, sir.
And as I understand it, that if they get funded by NTIA, then they're not going to get the ARPA funds from us. Is that correct?
That is probably true. Again,
What's the likelihood that that's going to happen?
I think it's a high percentage right now. I mean, the NTA definitely awarded it. The state has some work that they need to do to, apply, continue. It's not really apply anymore, but these grants come with a whole lot of overhead. So they need to get that work done and back to NTIA, so NTIA can look at it, award the money, and that's the ongoing things that's going to happen. So it should be a very good percentage that it's going to happen. It was awarded, and
John, do you know what the dollar amount is to the NTI grant? Or is that established or?
it was established. It was more than just these 7 towns because there was other towns within the state of Maine with it. So I do not know the exact number.
You don't know what RBAC's share of that is either, huh?
No, I do not. No.
Do you think it equals or exceeds our 880 that we tentatively agreed to?
Oh, it probably exceeds that. Yes. Yeah, to do these towns.
So there's no reason that the RBAC would say, we're going to waive our NTIA funds and accept the ARP funds. They would probably.
Yeah, again, they're going to take a step back and talk about that, Commissioner, in the next month. So we'll know more as to what they want to, what 2 things really. So where our back is going to stand, but also we need to be very careful about ARP money, not interfering at all with the NTIA money. So we'll be investigating.
We can take those 7 towns now and kind of tentatively remove them from needing ARP funds for broadband, correct?
Tentative is a good word because there's actually other options. And again, to answer that question from a build perspective, that was one of the things we understood from Connect Maine is that it's all the money's coming from NTIA and consolidated. So yes, there's no match needed. But second, there is other opportunities, not at maybe the scale of 900,000, but other opportunities for monies to be towards digital equity, which is also a big need after these builds are happening. So I think there could be a smaller amount that could be used for those 7 towns, not from a build, but from a digital equity perspective.
Is that a whole different? Is that a big difference from just the broadband that we're trying to provide?
It supports it, right? So I think when we had Susan in and she talked a little bit about it, it's great to have broadband and it's great to put it out there, but if people don't know how to take advantage of it, can't afford it, don't have devices. So I think digital equity is as important as building it out. And that's why if you look at some of the reports that we've looked at so far, we ask about digital equity and are the towns and the providers, working on digital equity at the same time they're building. So in this case, build could be done, and so it would be a good spend. Again, a lighter spend, but it'd be a good spend for digital equity to support those towns.
So do I understand that what we're going to do is provide broadband to as many that need it, hopefully, and then we'll go back and look at digital equity later?
I think we'll have that conversation in probably another one of these meetings and try to vet that out as to what makes sense.
And our awarding of funds at the previous meeting was always conditional. Anyway, essentially,
Correct.
we're just kind of taking a pause to see how it all plays out.
That is correct. Yes, sir.
As I recall, we were going to have to take another vote to release those, and they had to be under the same conditions as originally. So we're consistent with that today, right, John?
That is correct, sir.
Okay, so, I'd have to go reread the motion because I'm not sure that's correct. But we would have to reread the motion to make sure of that. But in reading this letter, from the folks on the select board on Deer Isle, it leads me to believe that the action we took actually harmed them. You're saying that that's not the case at this point. Is that?
We haven't. Yeah, the action we took was contingent on, the full financing picture coming back. So we haven't, all we did was set money aside. So we haven't, you haven't committed anything, and there's nothing being done by RBAC at this point. So that the NTIA is still safe.
You're positive, because that letter does not lead me to believe that. You're sure of that statement?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
And Jim Fisher was here also, I think. So he had
Yeah,
some input on that too. Thanks, Jim.
he just raised his hand.
Hi, Jim. Are you available to speak for a moment?
Yes, if I'm recognized. Thank you. I apologize if I caused any confusion. I do think if the $888,000 were dispersed to Sedgwick and Brooklyn, that would threaten the NTIA funding. And that's why I wanted to make it very clear that we can't match federal dollars, from my understanding. But as I understand it, I was concerned that Brooklyn and Sedgwick really wanted to run their own utility and might try to refuse the NTIA funding. And that would also jeopardize the NTI project because it's a regional installation. I've spoken with William Cohen in Brooklyn yesterday, and it sounds like, from him at least, their perspective, the NTIA solution is acceptable. So they're at this point, from my understanding, willing to go with the solution of taking the NTIA grant and installing fiber with consolidated communications. And so I think John's idea of just pausing makes some sense to make sure that there are no environmental issues or something that would cause the NTIA grant not to come through. But I think it's a near certainty at this point, from what I understand.
Well,
And I think that's the better solution regionally. And I think Castine will be included.
so my worry is this. I've got the motion in front of me. And it just says, we're designating 888,000 from the ARP funds, our ARP funds. And it will be released to RBAC upon presentation that the situation mirrors the presentation made today, which was back then, which was the last meeting. So we're going to release those if the situation is like they said at the last meeting. Well, the situation changed, but if they were to mirror that presentation, we would be obligated to release these funds. That's my only worry. I just want to make sure that we don't need to take some action today to not further muddy the waters. And John, you're saying that you are positive that we don't need to do that. I'm happy with that, but I just, to me, I see a little risk.
I can speak from the NTIA. You're not releasing those funds because the presentation is different. Well, I can't speak from a government perspective, from your governance perspective of how you see that motion. That's for sure. But I can, I'm comfortable that knowing that you're not releasing those funds because the situation definitely has changed on the ground. And so, but
I'll tell you what, Paul, I made the motion, and I'll tell you what I intended is that if today or whenever the situation has not changed and they still wanted the money, that we would take another vote and pay it.
Okay.
And I think this is the kind of change that I predicted would affect us releasing the funds.
Great.
Now, it doesn't mean that we're not going to, but the conditions have changed. We'd have to have another discussion to see whether or not under these conditions we want to release the funds. So I can tell you from my point, having made the motion, that this is exactly what I had. I couldn't have told you what the conditions would have been, but this is a good example of why I made the motion that way.
Okay. We're all on the same page.
Yeah.
Do you have anything else for us, John?
I do not. I was told I had to be brief because I took up like 3 hours the last two meetings. So
Jim?
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
thank you, thank you, commissioners.
So, Scott, the financial report that we had for our broadband ARP funds in a book did not include dispersing 880. So that's pretty close to, but did it No, what?
It didn't, well, if you're talking about the trio or any, the only report that had it putting 880,000, I think, was in my spreadsheet that I set aside, but I don't know if that's what
Well,
you.
one, no, one I looked at didn't have it in there, whatnot, and so that's, those estimates are pretty accurate today, right?
Yeah.
Did we anticipate in that report that you did you anticipate 7 towns on NTIA?
No, it was just the original 4.
4?
Castine is now in the mix. Castine on the status report was, we don't need anything, but I guess they have a little bit of need, so they slid in here. And then the other 2 towns for RBAC. But now they're all 7 are included in NTIA.
So as we look at that projected funding for broadband in our plans, we can take those 7 towns and say they probably don't need it.
That's kind of what I think John had and his group have been kind of establishing a status report. But I would agree with that we slide them over to pending for NTIA. But just remember, as he said, to tentatively take out the 888 commitment or award, or whatever the best word is, opportunity for future reference. That the anticipation is that you would not need that much, but they may need something.
It just, yeah, because there might always be circumstances within the towns where some
Right.
aspect of it, they
Right.
need some funds
Right.
to get that last mile or whatever it is
Right.
that's happening to.
And I think we did that with the original, with the original 4 that were NTIA as well. So,
I guess we just have to be careful that we're not overlapping federal funds with federal funds.
yeah, that was part of the question too, as to whether or not that was actually happening. And I think that Maine kind of said, yeah, this is how it would look. And, yeah.
And I'd just like to address the 2 letters that we got, this certainly wasn't intentional on our part. This was just something that we knew. This is just a curveball that we got after the fact instead of before the fact. That's the reason for that decision. That decision was not made should not be construed in any way to harm anyone else.
Yeah.
And
The goals, the county's goal is to get
exactly
broadband to
Right.
all the towns that need it,
within the county.
requesting help. Yeah,
That's
but
right.
no,
Yeah,
Right. And
I don't
just so
think
that,
that's changed.
that's correct.
yeah, sorry. And just so the commission's aware, I immediately responded to each one and had a conversation and basically relayed that.
Yeah.
As confident as I could that that's kind of what the situation was. We need to take a pause. We need to take a look at what the new specifics are gonna be and go from there. And they were understanding. They just wanted to make sure that, because the timing was so close, that what it appeared to be and what it actually was were 2 different things, so.
Well, there was some strong language in
Yeah.
one of them, and I just,
Yeah,
that was not
Yeah.
our intent whatsoever. In fact, it never even crossed our minds.
yes.
All right.
Oh.
Do you have anything else on?
Yeah, I'm perplexed by, no, never mind. No, no, I have nothing else.
All right, let's move
Oh,
on.
John
to-
is back on. I don't know if you all set with him.
Y'all set down. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, John.
You're welcome.
All right, we're gonna move on to our 9 AM old jail easement discussion.
John, before we get into that, Scott, shouldn't we have some kind of discussion on the recent continued damage on the old jail that's occurring? Would this be an appropriate time for that?
Yeah, it would. Because I know the commission for the most part is aware, but the public may not. We have, over the last, I'd say several days, if not week, we've had several bricks. We've basically been able to observe the constant thawing and freezing. Actually, in one spot, you can see with the opening that there's actually a chunk of ice behind there. And we can see with the last brick, it was fine for a couple of days, but as we had the rain and then the thaw, which, the ice opens up the gap, water leaks in, freezes, and the process continues to happen and kind of duplicates itself and expands the issue. I don't know how many bricks, but it's significant. I would use the term significant, to the point where we have talked about, and we're going to talk later about bringing in some Jersey barriers, some protection. They had to both keep people from entering into the area, as well as items falling out into the driveway. I have had a couple of reports where bricks have fallen into the driveway.
When you look at the side of the building, you can see a very noticeable wave of
Yes.
the bricks peeling off from the side of the building.
Well, in more than one place.
Yeah.
You have standing there looking at the entry door to the lockup. To the right is where they fell out. You look to the left, and I don't know what holes some of those in there. They're just teetering. And Dennis said the other day that this next 4 or 5 weeks is critical because this is the time when freezing and thawing occurs often with these rainy days and then freezing cold. So it could be substantial beyond that. And I was thinking, Scott, this Jersey barrier idea or whatnot, whatever the idea is that should that be discussed now? Because the truth of the matter is, it's the Ellsworth Historical's obligation to protect that building from damaging the other property owners. And should they be held accountable for whatever protection we think we need from those bricks? So, Rebecca, I think I saw Bill Vogel and
Terry, I think he's on this.
some, and yeah, we could bring us those people and get them in the discussion.
And while you're involving them, I just want the commission to know that I did receive an updated email from Dennis, and it does appear that more barriers are going to be needed. And so therefore the cost has increased to the tune of at max 38, we'll say $4,000 to shy of that 3,800.
We're gonna purchase those.
Well, that was the decision. That's the cost.
There was an
of
option
purchase.
to rent or to lease those.
It does, but I think quick figuring says that purchasing, because I would anticipate those being out there for at least a year, if not longer. I mean,
He needs to speak and then he'll
And
show
then-
up. Yeah, if you want to see Bill Vogel, he needs to speak.
All right, Bill, are you there?
I am here with a hyperactive cat. So if you see me moving violently to the side, it's not the meeting. Good morning. Thank you for bringing this topic up. There are a couple of things that need to be said. The first is that there is a committee within the Historical Society that is aggressively applying for grants, and these grants are focused on the exterior deterioration. That is the focus of these grants. Some of the work that we're going to have done in the jail is phased, meaning that we're going to take care of the worst things first. So we've got a couple of 2-3 grants in the pipeline that we're waiting to hear. And again, the focus, the very point of the grants is to address the masonry, the issue of falling masonry. Okay, so I think that'd be my first response to what's going on. We have, we're aware, we've met and gone through and taken a look at the damage, and we do have some ideas for stabilizing the work, the wall.
What about the immediate situation of masonry falling, like in the next few days? What are your plans for taking care of that?
Well, we've contacted our insurer, Rossborough. We're going to open a claim. We're working with an architect who is advising us about some of the things that we can do on an immediate basis.
Well, I'm talking about in the next week. I mean, there's masonry falling in the parking lot, and we're having to talk about protecting the area around it when, under my estimation, that falls on EHS. I'm wondering what your plans are. I mean, we're talking about Jersey barriers, and the county has roped off the area, and I'm wondering why EHS is not doing that.
Well, it's an emerging situation.
Oh, it's an emerging and it's an emergency.
Correct.
Bill, you've heard us discuss some way to protect the parking lot from the falling bricks. And our suggestion or our idea was Jersey barriers. They can go up close, they're durable and whatnot. Would you like to have an opportunity for just a few days to come up with some kind of a plan to mitigate those bricks getting out into the dooryard or falling on a vehicle or whatever? And take care of that yourself, or do you want us to proceed? And we'll have to talk about who covers the cost of that.
Well, I think it would be a little bit of both. I think what it calls for is teamwork. Yeah.
Okay, well, you have our suggestion. I mean, I've had an opportunity to talk to Scott and Dennis, our maintenance director, and that is our suggestion, that we, and they're available right now, right, Scott? Those Jersey berries are available.
Good.
American Concrete, I guess, has them and whatnot. We can purchase them. It's gonna be somewhere under $4,000 to purchase those and whatnot. And what's your opinion about the Historical Society covering the cost of that?
We'll do what is necessary to protect people. If it comes to that, the society has to do what's necessary to protect individuals. Yes.
I'd like to see a decision happen on it this week.
It has to.
Before we get to Friday.
Well, based upon Bill's comment right there, I think it's a motion's in order and whatnot to purchase enough Jersey barriers to barricade the between the old jail and the parking lot on the north side. Is that what we're talking about? Dennis isn't here, is he?
Well,
He may be- he may be on Zoom.
so here's my concern. I mean, I came early to look at that. There's gonna be bricks come down probably later today or tonight. And then we're gonna have another freeze cycle happen. I'm not sure why the county needs to spend this money. You know, to me, that's EHS, it's their building, I mean, you talked about, I forgot exactly.
Teamwork, yeah.
Teamwork, but, teamwork, it's your asset. So I'm not sure, the county shouldn't be expending funds on somebody else's asset. In fact, there's law around that. So, it is a little murky because it is protecting our parking lot. But, to me, this needs to be taken, this is like an emergency,
It is, and it really should be addressed sooner than later.
like today.
Within the next 24 hours, because it may take 24, 48 hours. And I'll let Dennis speak to that to get anything delivered.
Well, my motion would basically to be purchase $4,000, purchase up to $4,000 worth of Jersey barriers, have them set and whatnot, and pass that bill along to the Historical Society for payment. I mean, Bill Fogel said just a minute ago that they do what they need to do to protect the neighbor's property from damage that their property is creating, so.
Yeah, we're expending, Dennis works for the county, not for EHS, and, where this is, I don't know, I'm taking this maybe a little too serious, but to me, this is a very serious situation. And the county's having to step up and approach EHS and say, you gotta take care of this. Should be the opposite.
Well, I think we're in a better position in the EHS and whatnot to perhaps evaluate the damage and to take steps to mitigate it and whatnot. And Bill's saying that they'll do what they have to do as far as taking care of it and whatnot. So I am going to make the motion that the county purchase up to $4,000 worth of Jersey barriers as soon as possible, have them placed on the north side of the building in such a fashion as to protect the parking lot from any bricks falling from the old jail, and that the final bill will be presented to Ellsworth Historical Society for payment.
Second the motion.
Chair, Mike.
Yeah.
So just for EHS and Bill is that, so here's your opportunity that as we proceed with this, if you've got a less expensive solution, maybe you know somebody that's got some, maybe, I don't know. Now, I think you've got maybe 24 hours. And I'm looking to Dennis to say this to a response. Otherwise, it appears the $4,000 bill is headed to the Historical Society.
Yeah, and maybe there's some folks on the board that have some.
Right.
It just, we're not trying to expend money. We're just, bricks
It needs to be
20,
addressed
20,
now.
30 feet falling from the air, that's
It
serious.
does, yeah.
And I think that's an issue you should be discussing sooner than later with your insurance company. It could be that they're willing to step up right now and cover the cost of that, so.
Usually an insurance policy states that, you know, you do what you can to secure the property and, you know, that's what we're asking.
Insurance companies can do marvelous things. We had a house burning one time before we had the house out. They paid the landowner the face value of the policy and whatnot, so they could get into the house. So, I mean, it's not beyond the realm of possibilities that they can move on this, but in any event, I think our obligation is to get our property protected as soon as
Yes.
possible. We talked about potential problems in the past and whatnot, but this is an emergent problem right now, and it needs to be addressed right now.
Any other discussion? All right, let's vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Now, with regards to the purpose of this meeting today, Bill, we had a discussion in the past and whatnot about the possibility that an easement was going to be placed upon the old jail that would that would limit options by anyone for the next 10 years with regards to how to dispose of the building if it, for some reason, couldn't get restored and renovated. The general consensus of that discussion from the board is that we were opposed to that. And I can tell you that I personally am very opposed. Having done the research on prior county commissioners, getting a sense of what their opinions were and what they wanted to see with regards to the old jail, and I'm talking about the ones in 79 and the ones in 98 and the ones today, we still are, just as the other boards were, in support of renovating that building and continuing it as a historical museum. But there was a certain amount of trust given to the Ellsworth Historical Society when they were given the lease in the first place and the deed in the second, is that they would fulfill that obligation to restore that. And I think there was this condition, it's the reversionary clause that's been in the lease agreement, in the deed, and it's been the general consensus that if for some reason that building came back to the county, it would come back to the county under the same conditions as it was given to the Historical Society. And if the Historical Society fails to restore that building for whatever reason, and sometime within the next in the future, the county regain that ownership of that building, it would be a substantial disadvantage for us to have an option built in there that we couldn't dispose of that building for 10 years. And I think Paul very eloquently at the last meeting talked about the liability, and you can imagine the huge financial and liability for having a building that we could not restore, but we had to keep on site and take care of financially issues that are occurring today on that building for the next 10 years. And for that reason, I think it's important that Ellsworth Historical Society and Maine Preservation understand that a majority of this board is opposed to any condition being placed on that building that would limit our options in the future should we get ownership of that building again.
I understand that. The society acted to support a movement to apply for grants and to restore the building using the Maine Preservation Funds. I may have the organization wrong. Maine Historic Preservation Funds. And yes, part of that involves the conservation easement. I think the society was stuck between a rock and a hard place in the sense that we knew we were struggling as owners of the building, but at the same time, we were in favor of what might be described as a sort of a final effort to save the building. And I think that was the position that we found ourselves in, knowing that the time was running out, but observing and trying to support a team that is getting around, and a team of grant writers, I may add, of skilled grant writers, that was going to do everything possible to save that building. So yes, it's been a difficult line to walk. And yes, one of the issues certainly is the conservation easement. Yes.
Well, Bill, I
Carla?
understand that there is a subcommittee, who's focusing on the restoration and whatnot, but as far as we are, at least at me, as far as I'm concerned, our dealings with this old jail is between us and you, and representing the Ellsworth Historical Society, not this sub-grant. And so I'm telling you that there is a good chance that we're going to take official action today to officially oppose a 10-year conservation easement on this jail. And we're going to be telling you and the Ellsworth Historical Society that's the action that we have taken. Now, there's no better time than today to talk about some alternative. Is there an alternative that we can find that would assist in getting funds toward restoration without having conditions put on the old jail?
Can I speak?
Yeah. Go right ahead.
We heard your concerns at the last meeting and hear them now. I don't know if anybody's had an opportunity to look at a sample easement, but I do want to just let you know, and the wording, and we can send you what the wording states, but it does not, and this is where I think a lot of people are very nervous about putting buildings on the National Register of Historic Places, but it does not stop you if in fact, and I guess the worst case scenario is that the Ellsworth Historical Society goes bankrupt and the building reverts back to you, to demolish the building if in fact the circumstances, which again, this worst case scenario is that that the building falls structurally in disrepair, the continued, what if in fact we weren't to do anything this year, the continued degradation of the building, that they actually, you submit basically what the circumstances are, and typically the National Historic Commission will work with you and understand if in fact it needs to be demolished, that they do grant that. So it doesn't preclude that. It does submit a process so they can make sure that, the findings are correct, that this building really is, not salvageable. It's a risk to health and safety. So I guess I did just want to make sure that the easement was reviewed before you actually take action. Also, we are 1 month away from a very good opportunity to secure an award of almost $200,000. We are in very good position for this. We've received a little bit more information that gives us even more hope for that. The idea is that the moment that grant is awarded, we're going to be securing masonry contractors to deal with exactly what we're watching right now, which is obviously this is the year that this needs to happen. And without being able to sign this easement, we will not be able to receive the grant.
Carla, you're talking about 200 of what's probably going to turn out to be $1 million envelope repair. So, I mean,
But Bill, I do want to make sure that everybody understands that the 200, and in fact, we have 2 more grants in the pipeline just this month, will secure the masonry.
I don't understand what you just said. Well, it's $880,000 for the envelope, isn't that correct?
That's for the roof, the carpentry repairs, ADA, it's for the complete project. Site drainage.
They're not going to do exterior, I mean, facade work without fixing that roof. That's the problem. The roof is loud.
Well, to tell you the truth, the detail is that the brick corbel supports the eave. So in fact, we need to, and the corbel is what we're seeing, the gutters are now allowing water onto the brick veneer. So we need to rebuild that corbel, which is what a majority of the brick that we're seeing right now. So it sort of works hand in hand.
Just before Paul wants to speak, just before that, Carla, with all due respect, I'm not convinced about this ability to have the option of removing the building should it come back to us if there was an easement on that. I mean, the gentleman from Maine Preservation made it perfectly clear that's the reason it's there, so that we can't tear it down should it come back. And so, you know, I understand that there is a purpose for the easement, and the purpose is throwing obstacles in our way to dispose of that building should all efforts fail to restore that. And so, with all due respect, Carla, I'm not convinced and I'm not persuaded that.
Well, I'm looking at section 11, which does sort of get into the details of this worst case scenario that you're stating.
Okay. There's a few facts here. First is they've applied for the grant. Okay, so I'm not sure. I think our only course of action here, I don't think we can control whether there's an easement placed on it or not, because we don't own the property. They own the property. There is a reversion clause, but I'm not sure they're obligated to make sure that we're happy. I see the only thing that we can do is, you know, draft a letter to, you know, the folks who award the grant and say, hey, this is our fear. You know, we don't support it because of this fear. Be very clear, not try to put a kibosh to it, but just say our fear, state our fear. I see that as the only course of action that we can take at this point. I mean, we can stomp our feet and say we don't want this, but quite honestly, I'm not sure we have the legal standing to do that. That's a legal question that I don't know the answer to. But moving forward, you know, the other part of this that worries me is that it was stated in the last meeting that they would be coming to the county, you know, for funds to accomplish this. That's something we haven't talked about, and, you know, in light of a few things that have happened, I'm not really sure that I'd sit here and support that at this point anyway. So I've been thinking about what our options could be, you know, let's put all this behind us. Is there other options that we haven't thought about? Is there partnership opportunities? Is there other scenarios around the building? What else could happen? But sitting here right now, to me, any action that needs to take place right now is we need to draft a letter just raising our concerns to Maine Preservation. Anything else, I'm not sure that we can do. I don't know. I guess that's a suggestion and you know, something to talk about among the commission.
I don't think there's anything wrong in presenting that letter to that committee today, so they know that we don't support the easement itself. It's not our decision as to whether the grant is issued or not. Still give our opinion of, like what Paul said, our concerns about what the easement may entail and the ease with which being able to do an appeal on the easement. You know, I don't think there's a lot of confidence in how easy, you know, and that appeal. So I think it's fine to draft the letter and at least state the county, the commissioner's concerns and unease with an easement being placed on it.
And maybe the answer comes back that, you know, they alleviate our concerns. You know, maybe there's, you know, maybe our concerns are unfounded. You know, I don't know that. I don't think so. But if they are, somebody can point that out to us, you know, then great. I'm all in.
Oh, I think we're doing a terrible disservice to future boards if we don't do everything today to keep those future boards from being handicapped and bootstrapped from having all options on how to deal with that building in the future. And I'm not sure, gentlemen, that I'm gonna have to make that decision, but considering your tenures, you might have to. And I think, I disagree with Paul. I think that there could be made a case, if we wanted to pursue this, that there has always been an understanding and a trust with the Ellsworth Historical Society that they were going to take this building and act as stewards, not as owners, but as stewards of this building. And that for some reason, heaven forbid, that it had come to what they gave us last fall, a request to take this back. It comes back to us in the same condition as before. And so I think a case could be made, and I'd hate to see that this had to go that far, but I think a case could be made that they really don't have the legal ability to change conditions on that building, given the situation that it was given to them in. But I think to the Ellsworth Historical Society's credit, today we're seeing an effort that I haven't seen in all my years here with county government in restoring this. But nevertheless, after 40 years, we're seeing 3 or 4 months flurry. And if their efforts fail, I think, given this is the best effort they've put forward in all these years, that we are going to get this back. And it should come back to us so that we can deal with it appropriately, if that's the case. And I would like to take a minute and talk about some options, perhaps, as bizarre as they might be, that would assist the Ellsworth Historical Society in renovating their building, but also honor the positions taken by prior boards, consider positions that the future boards may find themselves in. And one of them is, Carla and Bill Fogel, would you consider accepting a $200,000 contribution from the county towards the renovation of this building in exchange for an agreement that you wouldn't place any conditions on that jail that would hinder our options in the future should we get this back?
As always, I can't speak as an individual. If I were to speak as an individual, which is almost inappropriate, I would say yes. But I speak for a group of people, our board, of course. And so I would need to, and unfortunately, I don't have my board here in the room with me. So it's something that I would, we'd have to get together and discuss your generous offer.
Well, Bill, you got to understand that these gentlemen have never heard this offer. So I mean, I'm throwing options on the table.
It's an idea. I understand. It's an idea.
Here,
Yep.
And it would take a discussion from you and a big discussion from us and what the ramifications would be, because that contribution would come with certain conditions, but nevertheless, it would negate any ability of you to put conditions on that building in the future if funding required that. Gentlemen, in support of that idea, at some point, I really think that if we saw the success of renovating that building as being viable, I think we would feel much better in contributing some significant amount of money towards that restoration. Sitting here today, I'm still hesitant to believe that they can pull it off. I wish them the best, but I just, after 40 years of failures, I'm just still very cautious, and I'm not ready today at this point, to contribute. But this is an opportunity for us to show good faith that we are in support of renovating that building to the Ellsworth Historical Society, and at a time when we can remedy what could be a bad situation in the future with this conservation easement being put on. And so I'd like to not have your support today for this, but I'd like to have you consider this option, and with the idea that Ellsworth Historical Society would discuss that amongst themselves And at some future date, if this became an option that we could embrace, that we'd come back and talk about it again and see if that's an option that we could take.
I really feel like some of that discussion really happened at the last meeting, that we see that we could contribute to the project if we felt that it was gonna obviously make the difference that the building being restored or not restored. The county has resources that it could do that. And I think it's fine to discuss it just as you have, that we consider those funds at a point when, obviously, be appropriate. In my opinion, the first thing would be to draft our letter stating our opposition to the easement, so that that gets registered. That point is stated and points being put to it.
I'm not sure, John, how much time we have. I mean, things are moving right along here and whatnot.
That's what I'm saying. The letter needs to get sent and done.
And the fact that I said that I didn't think we should contribute until that success is viable changes, because contribution now accomplishes other things besides supporting their success.
So really, your idea would just replace the grant that they're seeking. Right? Am I reading that right?
Right. In other words, instead of accepting the 200 from the Maine Preservation, whoever the Maine Revitalization, whoever they get it from, they'll take it from us. And under the agreement that they don't place any conditions on the jail, and we'll give them the 200,000 that they were hoping to get from their grant request.
Okay, great. It'd be great if that were to happen. I would support that. But, you know, I'm wondering how viable that is, because they told us that they needed that $200,000 grant and then at least that from us. So, you know, that's where it differs from, so I guess we should hear from.
Go right ahead.
May I speak? Thank you. That is we hadn't expected to enter into these conversations, but Bill, that's a very generous way of looking at it. But I guess I do urge you to review the easement. It's not highly technical. I myself can somewhat understand the language, but to actually read the sample easement, which I would encourage and we can facilitate even talk with Maine Historic Preservation Commission, who could probably give you a sample of the easement and talk to you about its limitations, which I do feel may relax some of your fears about that worst case situation. But also there are, because this building is on the National Register of Historic Places, there's opportunities for other grants. In fact, when I was president at the Grand, we received a Belvedere grant, which is issued through the Maine Community Foundation. Those grants all have this same type of requirement. They have easements, because these grants are only available because these buildings are historic and on the register. And so that opens up all of these opportunities for grants. They're not huge opportunities. They're like $20,000 at a time, some of them. But I guess that means that maybe the county doesn't understand that some of this other funding may be tied to this easement as well. And so I guess it's a little bit more complicated, and I think it does take really sitting around a table maybe to work out some of these options and understand the ramifications.
Okay, so you want to hear another bizarre suggestion? You give us the deed back to the old jail. We'll put a referendum on the ballot seeking a $2 million bond to restore the old jail. And we're going to be asking the same people that you're asking for contributions to recognize the historic significance of that building, to tell us that, yes, we do want to restore that and they're willing to pay for that.
Well, go ahead, Bill. Sorry.
No,
I think
mean,
these are all
that's my suggestion. Bill?
these are all concepts that the Historical Society would entertain. I can just say that, knowing the people that are on my board, that we would certainly entertain some of the concepts or ideas that you're putting forth today. We would certainly entertain those, yes.
Well, gentlemen, the action that you want to take today does nothing for Historical Society for their renovation project. In fact, it could have a detrimental effect if Maine Preservation says, we're not going to award this grant knowing that the county is not in lockstep with the Elsa Historical Society. So what you've done is damage their ability to get the funds without offering them any other options that would help them restore. So, I'm only trying to show them that we're not trying to be obstructionists. We're simply towing the line with regards to the position the county commissioners have taken for the last 40 years and the position that we should be taking in the future until that place is either restored or comes back to us.
To me, those are all options. There's a few other options, that we could touch on, but the simple fact of the matter is, sitting here today, there is a grant application into Maine Preservation. If that grant were to be awarded, doesn't matter what we throw out when, it would be encumbered. That's what I'm facing. All these are ideas, and there's probably hybrids of these ideas out there. There's partnership ideas, there's a lot of other ideas, but for me, the fact of the matter is that there is an application for a grant that probably will encumber the building in one way or another. I understand Carla's point about the easement. I have not read this easement, but I have read, preservation easements in the past. It's not as easy as just showing them that it needs, that it needs to come down. It's not that easy. But she's right, there is an avenue. The argument is how easy is it and at what cost? So for me, I think we need to take action now and just to draft a letter to Maine Historic Preservation stating that the commission opposes the award of a grant that would encumber the building if ownership of the building would to revert back to the county. It's that simple. If somebody could show us that it wouldn't, then the opposition goes away. So to me, that's the step that needs to be taken today, because there's a grant application that's being evaluated now. And then, Bill, without question, we need to talk to EHS about some of these other options. But I do think that we need to take action today on just what I stated.
Well, I can tell you that I'm not prepared to debate with Carla how easy or how difficult it is to.
That's a legal question.
Well, it is legal. And when I'm talking to the public about this, and I'm talking to people who I feel are just as qualified as Carla Haskell on understanding conservation easements, and they tell me that conservation easements are there for one purpose, and that's to throw up roadblocks so that nothing happens to that building except restoration, then I just have to take what Carla says with a grain of salt. And so, short of having both these experts from both sides of the spectrum come in here and debate this, I can tell you right now that I'm simply not a firm believer that it's as easy for us to dispose of that building under a conservation easement as Carla appears to want to indicate.
I agree, but I still think because of that, I think we need to take action on sending a letter to the commission.
I'm going to move that the commissioners,
I think we already have a motion.
we do,
Yeah.
Okay, yes, this,
Did we?
do we have a motion? I didn't.
I don't recall one. No, I think you're thinking of
Do you have a motion?
Jersey.
yes, I have, yeah, I do have a motion. I'm gonna move to direct county staff to draft a letter to the Maine Historic Preservation stating that the commission opposes the award of a historic preservation grant that would encumber the building if ownership of the building would revert back to the county.
And I'll second that if you include the Ellsworth Historical Society, because I think it's important that officially and publicly that we state to them that we're in opposition to any conditions being placed upon this building. You are the stewards of this building. We gave this to you under certain conditions. We don't want you to change those conditions. And that I would like the motion to include a copy of this goes to them as well, so that it's official that they have been notified of our opposition to this conservation easement.
Okay, you're talking about sending the letter, not,
Right.
not them taking, because I don't want to state that it's their position
No.
because it.
No, I'm saying we send it to Maine Preservation and to the Ellsworth Historical Society.
That's a friendly amendment that I agree.
So Rebecca, you understand the motion?
Yes.
I will repeat it
Okay.
in its entirety. What you want me to do that? I'm gonna move to direct county staff to draft a letter to Maine Historic Preservation and Ellsworth Historical Society stating that the commission opposes the award of a historic grant that would encumber the building if ownership of the building were to revert back to the county.
And I will second that motion for the rest.
So what that does is if they can show that it wouldn't encumber it, as Carla states, if were to revert back to the building, then our worry is gone, because I understand the language that she's talking about. I just don't think it's that easy as Bill stated.
Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Is that it with against the motion?
Now, I gotta say this, Bill, you've brought up two scenarios. There's a whole host of other scenarios. I've spoken with the administrator a little bit about this, and he and I threw out a couple of other things that might include partnerships, that include some of the things you're talking about. All possibilities are there. I do think that that's a discussion that needs to happen, with Ellsworth Historical Society and the county. Or maybe there's another way to go about this. And if there is, I would like to see it preserved. I really would. I would like to see him succeed. And if there are other possibilities, please, let's get them to the table. Let's start talking about them. I think it would be great if the Historical Society could talk with the administrator and if they could, and maybe a commissioner, and see if we can't hammer something out that works for everybody.
Well, John, Paul, that's going to happen sooner than later.
Yes.
I can tell you that if we take this position today that we're opposed to a conservation easement being placed on this deed, and they go ahead and do that, for me, that poisons the water for any future support for their efforts, because if they're just going to deny our concerns and ignore our concerns, then this chance for partnership is going down the tube. As far as I'm concerned, it's going down the tubes in a hurry.
Yeah, no, I think EHS needs to work with county staff on some alternatives. And I don't know what they look like. We've thrown out a couple of things. To me, that's the next step.
Yeah, we're perfectly willing to do that. Yes. Yes.
Yeah, and I guess some thoughts about who we'd be meeting with. Obviously, there is such urgency. We all are feeling it, as you are more than anybody, as you're driving by it all the time. So that's, I guess, our concern is timing and making sure we're not postponing for another year.
Yeah, no, my advice, anyway, it's just my advice, I think you need to contact the administrator sooner than later. You've heard Commissioner Clark's comments and see what other possibilities are there and see if you can't, bring something forward for us to consider. I mean,
Well, I think that discussion should include the commissioner.
I do too, but that's,
Do you want to assume that as the chairman, or would you like to
well, I think,
delegate that?
I think that that's a step that certainly you can't include all of us because then it's a meeting. You can include one of us.
Paul, that's what I was asking John, is that if we're going to include a commissioner, do you want to do that as the chairman, or do you want to delegate that?
I'd better delegate, to be honest with you.
Do you, Paul, do you mind if I?
No, but I was gonna leave that up to, but if, I would agree with John's assessment.
I would be willing to work with the administrator and EHS to see if there are some options that we can have to address our concerns. Okay.
That'd be the best way.
All
Yeah.
right, so let's move on. Next up, we have the airport.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Leroy?
Hey, I'm here. And I just wanted to touch base on the bid a little bit. We'll be coming back on the next meeting after Jason reviews them to sign for the contract approval and the grant application sign. So there'll be
You're talking about the bid that we just opened.
Bid you just opened, correct, the culvert bid.
Yeah.
So the camera discussion, done a fair amount of legwork and talked to quite a few people, and Down East Communications seems to be, they were the lowest bidder, and I've checked with RSU 25, which was one of his references, along with a teacher in the RSU over there, and they're all pretty pleased with him. So I would recommend, from my standpoint, to go to Down East Communications.
And what's the, do you have the dollar amount again?
And I did check with him this morning. He had taxes on the proposal. We can remove that tax, and so it should be $39,213.54.
That's just the airport.
It's just the airport.
Okay, so
Go ahead.
So my question is this, I know I'm sort of jumping ahead, but the two are sort of interrelated. Is the jail staff had opportunity to review?
Yes, Leroy and I and Scott had conversations, the sheriff had conversations about this. And also Down East is our lowest bid. They meet everything we need. And I feel that they would be the best option for the jail also.
So the recommendation coming from the jail and the airport is for Down East. And do you have the dollar amount for?
Again, removing the taxes is $51,241.11.
Is there any economy of scale from getting both bids? Are we getting any credit or any consideration for that? Did he bid those separately?
He bid those separately, yes.
So it is probably that, okay.
So.
And he's lowest like quite a bit.
Yeah.
Like
You're satisfied with him?
20,000.
Yeah, he's updating that. We're going from like 2 terabytes to 160 terabytes. We're going from 2 megapixel cameras to 8 megapixel cameras he's running new cable. Had a lot of conversation with him. I think he's, each one of them had great input. And I feel, they're local, he's on board.
I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No, that's fine, but no, just I feel that they are, like Leroy. They are.
And Scott, you reviewed it, you concur that.
Yeah, I mean, I was working with Tim was out, so I worked with Leroy a little bit and kept in contact with Tim. We had some concerns, but they've been taken care of and then some.
All right, let's move on.
Okay, so I'm gonna move to award the airport and, I'm gonna take them both at once. I'm gonna move to award the airport and jail camera contracts to the low bidder on the project. What's their, it's down east,
Communication.
yeah, but wasn't there,
You want the total or you want the?
no, I have that, but I thought there was something, I was looking for my notes from the last meeting. That was the name of the entity?
It is the name of the entity, Josh Braille is the owner, yeah.
Okay, so, to Downey's Communications as recommended by the jail administrator and the airport manager for a total of $90,454.65. And you want me to break out where each one goes, or, okay? Period.
So that's their name.
Paul, I'm trying to think if there's a downside to grouping these together. For example, if for some reason they decided to do the jail, but they didn't want to do the airport for whatever reason.
The funding mechanisms are different.
I'm really questioning the.
You'd rather have it separate?
I
Okay.
think it's cleaner.
Okay,
Yeah, to do the airport first.
okay, so I'm gonna move to award the airport camera contract to Downey's Communications, low bidder on the project, as recommended by the airport manager for a sum of $39,213.54.
Second it. And my question is, where's the funds coming from the airport?
Airport, they have their own pot of gold.
Or
So he's-
what's the name of that part of gold?
That would
Reserve
be,
account?
it would be, yes, it would be a reserve account.
So it's not an app project or anything?
No,
The reason I say that, Paul and John, is that our projects require the lowest bid unless you can show that they're not qualified.
Yeah, but they are the lowest.
yeah.
Yes, yeah.
Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. So we'll tape the jail up when we get to the jail.
I think,
Jail's next up.
Leroy also.
Leroy, you all set there?
Yeah, I'm all set.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Tim. Why don't we take your item A first?
Move that, Paul.
Okay. I didn't know, I didn't want to preempt it. I don't know if you want to make a presentation or if you just want me to move it.
No, just she was able to, she moved earlier, she did want to work early last week, so we got to jump start on the training.
So I'm going to move to approve March 5th as the hire date for part-time corrections officer Shauna Wright rather than the previously approved date of March 12th.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 So I'm going to move to award the jail camera contract to Downey's Communications, low bidder on the project, as recommended by the jail administrator in the amount of $51,241.11.
Second.
Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Tim, so is there, how are they gonna,
and that
is
is,
there a need, is there gonna be a need for one, is he gonna be able to simultaneously work on these two projects, or do we know what the approach is gonna be and which is gonna have to get done first?
No, I'll talk to Leroy, see what priority is on his end. Ours is running, if he needs it first, that's fine, but, he's willing to come in whenever
Is Leroy replacing something? Or is this new?
he's replacing also, I believe.
Yeah, we got, ours is up and running too, so I think we can,
Sounds like coordination between the two.
yeah, I think Tim and I can work together with Scott, and I think we can make it all happen.
and that is an art project for the jail. Yeah, okay, just want to make sure you were.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Tim.
Thanks.
Layton's is up next.
So Dennis, the entrance project, we got a letter here from Sealander
Yes,
with a bid schedule, so on.
right.
The only comment I had with regards to this letter, if you look at it, it's the fourth, what do you call it? Bullet point. He talks about renovating the tower out front here to resemble the stairwell in the back. That's what done when we built the jail. You see that? You have this puzzled look on your
I
face.
do.
Well, he said detailing the replacement of the damaged precast on the elevator shaft. Finished
Yes.
and finished system similar to the outside of the stair addition to the north side of the building.
Yeah, that's that.
Well, I can tell you, from the day that got finished up there, we called it Lego. It never matched the building. It was a
Yeah.
terrible match. I
Agreed.
just,
It's on the face of the jail and certain parts as well, on the.
yeah,
above
and so
the-
I think maybe if you comment that to him that, we'd like to see whatever this finish is,
It's
that
stucco.
somehow resembles either what we have or complements the, the rest of the
Yeah,
building.
I think actually that's his goal.
Yeah,
What he's talking about is that skin on that elevator tower is like 2.25 inch precast concrete, and it's hung up there on pins. So we thought about taking it off, but we can't take it off because it has to slip up and off to come out, and all the others above it would have to come out as well. So you turn the corner inside the vestibule, that one they can take off and will take off. But this one, so they leave it in the bottom of it, there's a little bit of spalling, a little bit of, and some of it now due to the ramp, you can see like, coming up the stairwell is going to be exposed because the ramp is lower on the lead end and higher up near the platform. So it's gonna, you basically take a little pie wedge in there of some type of insulated masonry finish product is what he's describing. To be colored like that, I would think it would be gray. Try to match what's there rather.
Even the texture was,
Yeah, it is, it's troweled on. So we like a solid surface or.
with today's technology, I just can't imagine you can't match that better. So anyways,
I
that's.
suppose you can, I'll mention that.
I'm pleased to see that he's gone with a hot water system on the ice melt.
Yeah, I was as well. And no, we asked, Scott and I conferred, we did ask about changing some of those dates. I don't know if you can brought up to speed with that. Oh, the basic timeline is a good one. But we asked to have the plans developed and brought before the commission to view before they're made available for approval. In fact, he said we could have another week to think about it. For the commission to review the plans and for him to make changes based on that viewing and any recommendations.
Yeah, but he's gonna place an ad, it's March 28th.
Yeah, I mean, but his walkthrough date's not till.
yeah, I think the ad is fine, and then, but the documents available to bidders is what caught our eye, is that you will, so if he releases them before, you're not gonna meet with him again on this project, which I think is a good thing, and I think we've got it solidified enough, and I think you need some answers on, some final answers on that ADA spot.
Yeah, which was left out of the memo.
Right, and yes, and that's what I pointed out, so we were thinking to wait and release it on the 6th, if that's what he wanted to. And then Rebecca noticed that I think his bid opening date was a Thursday, is that right? So that should be, that really, he can have extend the deadline by a day to the 29th on a Friday, and then have the bid opening be that following second or third.
It's I think it is.
And then, but then he said, as Dennis pointed out, then he said if, do you want to consider delaying it a week? Because if we have a meeting with him on the 5th, that Tuesday, that you may have other concerns. I think I really hate to delay it another week if you're comfortable with it.
I think a bid going out to the contractor May 9th is already way behind schedule. I think these contractors are lining stuff up.
Okay.
And have lined them up by now.
Okay.
And while I think we need, if we're gonna get this done this summer, we need to move
Yeah, so remember that in the April meeting, that, yeah, that's pretty much gonna be the design, and in this case, because Dennis and I talked too, was that in this case, you really need to make sure that, because going forward after that, it would be change orders.
Geez, we've seen some pretty good designs. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah,
we had that bump around handicap, we'd like to see something.
Yeah, that's been addressed. I asked him about that yesterday.
Okay, so if that's no longer an issue, I can't remember anything else.
Well, there are some new features. The one noted there, which is our big oak tree. Which,
You know,
there's a lot of people that won't be sad to see it go either with the guy.
you figure that the root system, well, as far as the limbs, that's starting to affect our foundation.
It's hitting, we know it's hitting
Yeah.
the foundation wall.
So I,
Sure.
sure, every tree we cut is just, but nevertheless, I don't think that's a delay.
No, I feel the same way. I mean, obviously, if it needs to be removed, they'll replace it with something that, I think that's addressed in his proposal, or in his memo. The only thing, that's not addressed is the ADA part.
That curb is,
And you say that's taken care of.
yes.
Other than that, I think we're ready to go.
Well, now we got the issue of the origin of that flattening spot. One of the things he was looking at yesterday is diverting water off that flattened spot of the parking area so that it doesn't go into the old jail. He's thinking it.
Needs to go that way.
Well, yeah, that way.
yeah,
So that might be a curbing or something, or along that would, right, that would channel water away from those window wells and maybe even a new stair for them, but all pretty inconsequential. Well, the point I'm making is that the documents available for viewing on the 4th doesn't mean that design won't be done prior to that. So I think if it's important that Mike knows as soon as his design is done and there is a plan, we'd like to see a full-size set over here. And maybe we could have it, view it well before that date happens, because I think he's pretty close. And I think the input of the commission has been, has changed his course to the point where anything else you pick out would be pretty superficial.
And I think we're so close that if you keep a close eye on it, what you tell us is what we're gonna end up with. Don't you? I mean,
I do.
Everything else is just.
So far, yeah, it's been,
Insignificant, yeah.
yeah.
Okay. All right. So do we need to take any action, Dennis?
no, that's just an update. You sign written update. And the timeline, I think actually Scott and I both told him, let's wait and see what happens at the meeting today. So I'll be talking with him today, and we're gonna try to keep that timeline.
Yeah. No.
But just make sure our concerns are met and addressed prior to that point.
Yeah.
Which if we keep a close eye on the development process, should be able to do that.
Yeah. My feeling is that Mike Sealander proposed this timeline, therefore he must think that we can
He does.
meet it.
Yeah.
And I say.
Yeah, his offer of that extra week was courtesy to make sure that his clients are satisfied, that's, I think.
We're so close, that it's not gonna take much to satisfy.
Yeah, I agree, as Scott said, made the same comment yesterday, I agree.
No, all right, Dennis, so let's get back to our whole GL discussion just for a minute.
Yes.
What do you think the time frame will be for us to get Jersey barriers in place?
Yes, well, I've got the two options that we're looking at are a rental, which I think could happen really quickly, and a purchase, which again, could happen pretty quickly. I've been in touch with both vendors. And the only person that makes and sells these is American Concrete up in BZ. On the other side, they work in that construction lane out there. They have them in stock.
Okay, so we're talking about either 5 foot or 10 foot, and if we
Yes.
use the 5 foot, we can probably move it with millage tractor, right?
Yes, very.
So what's the cost of 5 foot, and how many do we need?
The total length is about 70 feet that we want to cover, which would be 14 units.
Yep.
And that would allow us to kind of kick off the front, like protect the front edge, go along the side, not tight together, but with a small gap in between. You get to the stairs, leave an opening for access for them, and then tail on down the tail end with another unit that would kind of,
And how much are those a piece?
those are $271 a piece,
Two what?
$271 a piece,
What's that equal to?
$374.94
That's purchase.
purchase. And if there's a delivery fee, I don't know. I'm sure it'll be anomaly, under
And
$200.
what's the rental cost?
The rental is for 10 pieces. They're 10 feet long. $60 per month each, which would be a total of $420 per month.
Wait a minute, why are we getting 100 feet? We only need 70.
Oh, I meant 7. That's right, 7.
7?
Right.
Okay, so that's gonna be $60 a month per unit or
Per unit.
So it's $420 a month?
Right.
And we're gonna need them a year.
I think way more than that, Paul, to be honest with you. I think that one of the things we never talked about with the Historical Society is once all these cogs are in place and we decide they're gonna do something, the methods they use for these repairs and the scaffolding and staging or lifts, it's a whole different critter that really isn't being discussed too much. That, you want to be understanding, but we also have emergency service that uses that a lot, so
I'm looking at the sheriff and saying, I can't imagine what you're gonna do if you lose
it's,
the exit from around the
it's a
back.
part that all goodwill aside is really gonna be a problem, I think.
Scott?
Yeah, I just wanted to listen to everything, see where we're at, but I want to bring to your attention to that in that back corner where you round to go out the exit. If you look up there, it started to come apart and there's 4 parking spots there. We've already lost 3. If they start coming out of that corner over there, that's 4 more. We don't have 3 spots to lose. let
Yeah,
alone
you're kind
7.
of losing all those.
Then we're gonna have to really look at how we are assigning parking places here, in my opinion, here. We're not gonna take marked vehicles and park them across the street. We're gonna have to access what's on site here. That may mean we have to move some people around.
Dennis and I talked yesterday, just that it's just a matter of time before you do lose those 4 back parking spaces on the back of that building, the west side of that old jail. And so you're right. I mean, at some point, we might have to talk about who gets designated parking down below, who gets relocated somewhere else and so on. So,
I don't want to see anybody parking on the main mall, but there is parking up above that could be accessed up there. But as I say, I'm not comfortable leaving any.
well, that's a discussion for another day, Scott, but I just dread the day that I can't see how they can renovate the south side of that building without setting up scaffolding and a work area that's not going to shut off.
I think they plan to take the roof off.
And I've seen guys now that don't understand that's the exit, trying to turn around and go out the entrance. And that's just a
Deliveries.
disaster waiting to happen.
Deliveries.
Yes, delivery, yeah.
Coming in there with trucks.
And that was the other reason why Scott Atkins and I talked about this barrier system, is it gives more room to, the other day, the postal delivery truck parked right in front of the old jail, took up almost all the driveway through. And so, I mean, now maybe there's room enough to get around that now. So anyways,
You talked about access on the right side of the building as you're facing it. There should be no access to that building on the right side with stuff falling off the right side, should there?
Yeah, well,
I know
that's a good
that,
question. There's a little roof that's over their entry, which is the only reason I gave it a little bit of deference, but.
because, I mean, really, you don't know when something's gonna come down. And if we end up blocking it off, therefore, then there could be some potential liability there. I wouldn't want anybody going.
that's an interesting situation, because they're building. We restrict them from entering their building, even though we determine it's a hazard.
Well, that's why I was so adamant about them taking care of this.
Well,
because-
yeah, that's a good point, because if a brick hits you in the noggin, you're standing on county property.
Yeah.
The
And a brick,
architect
a
of that,
noggin from,
yeah, architect, though, if you look at that though, Paul, the architect of that building doesn't lend itself to losing bricks soon, probably later, but the bricks that are falling is different design, because when you got you've got a doghouse roof there or something, right?
There is over that
Over that
stair set.
Yes, that's so that the risk is delayed from what's.
There is a portico over, but what's a brick gonna do to that? I don't know.
I tell you what, Paul, in this discussion we're having with EHS about options, we'll bring up that issue and tell them that they should be considering some kind of protection from entering that building from that area or restricting it altogether and using the front of the building.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna,
Well, if you've ever been down to Boston in the summer, you'll notice you walk down a lot of sidewalks and the scaffold goes right over you with some protection overhead. Maybe that's what needs to be done. And, you know, we actually own some scaffolding, so it's possible for us to do if you wanted to do that.
Oh, I see, just the temporary construction scaffold.
Yeah, set up a couple of frames there.
You know,
and then you could put a
that's a
solid.
cheap solution right now, though, to set that up right now and, protect that walkway.
well,
Or we could send them in the front door.
well, my feeling is that I'm, you know, sitting in this room, you're the most qualified to do that. I was just raising the issue because that would stink if a brick came up from. It's
My thoughts were to protect their rights to enter their building and still protect the citizens of Hancock County from danger. But so anything that enhances the protection from danger, I'll do whatever is
I
best.
don't think you need our action, need for us to take action on you.
No, that's all.
Develop some way to protect the people walking in there. So if you and Scott can come up with
Okay,
an idea and it works and especially if it doesn't cost anything like scaffold.
Well, and to me, that's why we have qualified folks like that to take care of it.
Yeah, let's do it though.
So I
Okay.
kind of a little, wonder a little bit too, like in our slightly grander scheme, we're working on putting in this ramp. And we've got Jersey barriers in there. We got construction over here. Like, what is gonna be happening
yeah,
in that space when this is all going down? Because
well, that, with germane to the Historical Society's project, the other question, not excluding, let's say the scaffolding and access questions are solved, they're gonna have to stage materials and stage demolition areas, which means, roll-offs and pads per product to be placed. Where does that take place? They have one 10-foot strip on that's paved there, and that's
Well,
that
construction,
access to that is limited.
construction for the ramp though is timely in that we can use the front lawn to park on and it'll have dried up by then, hopefully. Because it's gonna be all rutted up between now and then, but, because they're having to park on it now.
Right.
But, anyways, the front lawn will be available to park on and we're gonna have to, obviously, the people who have dedicated parking down are gonna lose those during the construction.
Right.
Process.
so
So we need to make a decision on whether we purchase these barriers or whether we rent.
Didn't we take action on
You did.
Oh, we.
Yeah,
we
you
had a
did
motion.
purchase.
that? Yeah, you made the motion.
Yeah. I
Well, the thing is that's,
kind of afraid.
if we have no use for these after, is there a market or something,
Well, then we can give them away and we still save money.
Yeah, that's true, but I do have, there are places on the campus that we can use these things. For instance, up where we park, the EMA generator, we could make that spot, safer and,
Because if EHS buys them, they own them. We can,
Yes.
they'll own them, so,
And they can find a place to store them.
well, if there is such a thing, it's a group here.
yeah, or they could, yeah, or whatever.
Okay, so we've taken,
That's
so we
something,
don't,
we've taken action,
yeah,
and
okay.
if staff works out something with the EHS, great.
But yeah, we'll see where the frisbee lands on that one.
all right, Dennis, let's move on to number C.
So I'm gonna move to hire Justin Falkingham of Bucksport as part-time janitor at grade step 5A effective March 19th, 2022, not to exceed 29 hours per week.
Second,
All those in favor?
Aye,
aye.
thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thanks, Bill.
All right. We have deeds.
I'm gonna move to hire Lillian Nevels as part-time deeds clerk at grade step 6A effective March 19, 2022.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. EMA.
You just want me to dive in, or I don't want to preempt any, dive in, okay?
Just a minute, excuse me, just a minute. On this motion we just approved,
Diesel.
yeah,
I left out,
okay, I'm not, I see in total, it'll
Yeah.
not exceed 29. Oh, okay, I was just concerned that there was going to exceed 29 between the two. Yeah, okay,
Yeah.
never mind.
so
I'm fine.
do you want to make I can just jump in, or you want to make a presentation?
No presentation, really,
Okay.
just.
Move to hire Henry Aubrey of Stockton Springs as Deputy Director, EMA, effective March 26th, at an annual salary of $46,277, be increased to $47,277 after 6 months of satisfactory performance.
6 months increase. That's not in policy, is it?
Well, no, but it isn't outside of policy either.
It's not.
No, this is an exempt position.
Oh, exempt position. I'm going to second the motion.
Got anything to tell us?
I shared my comments with you in writing, I think, earlier. He seems to be a very qualified young man and someone I think will do a good job for us. And yeah, it was a unanimous.
You've been very fortunate with your deputies. I hope your lucky streak continues.
I have been,
You've had some excellent ones.
I have been. He's got an excellent background, and I think he'll be a good fit.
Good. Well, good. Wish you the best.
Thanks, Andrew.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Andy?
I'm gonna move to hire Emily Fenson, is that right? Fenson of Surrey as full-time RSC dispatcher at grade step 9C effective March 29, 2022.
I'm going to second that, but you're going to give us justification for the C law.
Yes, she is currently a qualified dispatcher. She worked temporarily with the state police, so she is fully qualified with all the certifications that she would be required to have to dispatch here. So she's, we'll get her through some continuing to make sure her certifications renewed, but right now she is completely fully qualified with.
Wow, you dodged a bullet there, didn't you?
Yeah.
Oh, wow, good deal.
Yep.
Good deal. I support them, the 9C.
So I forget, Bob, did we lose somebody or are losing somebody?
This was the vacancy that we had filled with Lily, that we continue to fill. It's one of our full-time positions, should be on the overnight position.
Is this full complement now if you hire this one?
Yes.
Good for you.
All right, ready for the season?
Well, we were worried about, again, training through summertime. That's our busiest season. It always seems to be a very hard thing to do, training during busy. She worked across the street at Ellsworth, so she's familiar with our system. She's dispatched with Spellman. She's basically a couple weeks to figure out where the bathroom and the microwave is, and so.
That's good. Call vote.
Aye.
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 Thanks, Bob.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We signed the jail union contracts.
You have been looking at the lineup, I probably, would you object to bringing E to the top, to the next subject, the LUPC review request?
No.
Before we go executive.
Yep. All right, so we have,
I have not heard from Miller, but I'm believing Commissioner Clark, isn't this the blueberry fields that we went to visit?
Right.
And I think Commissioner Wambacher, you went as well. And
Dwayne Jordan's.
but yeah, so there's 20 additional acres, and I think you just, again, reviewing this, if you had a comment to submit, if not, I think we check off the box, which I think we've done before and submit.
That's what, my thing was, there was no action needed because we have no comment unless we come up with one now.
This is an interesting project, Paul, and if Millen is available, something, it'd be nice to take a road trip and see that again, because that's a, I mean, windmill's a windmill, but this solar project and where it is and whatnot is, it's really interesting to observe, so.
So like the 20 acres is just so that they meet the requirements for the wattage, something like, right, that their fence was way expanded.
Yeah, it must have been to like configure in that they, must have been just short on room for maybe too many rocks in the way or something to get so many solar panels.
Well, they had a distribution problem though, before they solved that, obviously they must have,
I think there was, yes, I think there was, wasn't there a capacity issue or something? And they were,
transmission
yeah,
problem.
but it also made me think that, wasn't there another one that was another smaller one that we sat down with them and talked to them, we hadn't heard back from them.
Is that Osborne? No.
Yeah, something, yes, I think that one would involve municipality and it probably just never crossed county UT, but.
So I guess officially we have no comment, I mean, we support the.
No, okay. So-
Project.
So the, we kind of kept on wondering, maybe it's the final part of the LUPC, given the final blessing and everything. Is there any possibility of community benefit funds that we'd see from this or not?
I think that's,
From the first day we met, we broached him about TIF, not TIF, but community benefits,
Yeah.
and they never said poo. I mean, they never poo-pooed it, so, you know,
I assumed there was an Hannerton.
I think it was still, well, it's in the, I believe it's in the permit, unless I'm misspeaking, but that's why I was gonna ask, are you aware if there's any actual construction out there or seen any updates? I mean, we were just out there, we were pulling rocks out of the field.
no, he wasn't even designing it for, I mean, they were doing it for Bluebird Land,
Yeah,
with the idea in the back of his mind, it would be a wind farm someday, but, that's, like I say, when we had a meeting, must have been, what, 2 years ago now, right?
Yeah,
I remember
yeah.
us talking about it.
And we broached
Yeah.
them and they didn't, they seemed
Yeah.
open to the idea of having CBA funds, so, you know,
When does that, if that were gonna happen? Like, so I feel like that was tied in with the windmills, was that part of their approval from the EPA side of it? Or am I
they're
that
required to give that to get their permit,
Yeah,
right?
yes, yeah, I'm not sure specifically where it's inserted, but it does, I remember just the verbiage of the conversation being that it has to be included in the approval, permitting
Yeah.
approval process.
I'd like my general consensus director, administrator to draft a letter, send it to Dwayne and who's the other guy?
Oh, shoot, he's right on the application.
Yeah, he knows who it is.
Stacy,
Steve,
that's,
no,
no,
that's not the guy I'm
No.
thinking of, but anyways, it's the other owner here. Basically, once again, broaching the idea of community benefits awards for completion of the project, just get that discussion started.
Sure,
So,
yeah.
by general consensus, we agree to that, gentlemen?
Yeah, but that's not part of the permitting process?
I believe it is, but we can, maybe, I guess in having that conversation, they can reiterate that. Yeah, maybe I'll throw that point out, saying I believe
It'd be
it's,
a good resource to find out if that is the case, you know?
right,
And
right.
So, because it's an agreement which has to be negotiated, so at some point, we're gonna have to sit down, somebody's gonna have to sit down and figure out what that is, and how it's computed, and so. All right.
So we want to take them out of order since we have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, if out of order, I'd like to talk about D for a minute, gentlemen. And I've already made my feelings known, but I'd like to reiterate this in public for the process. In the past, when we have done an evaluation on a county administrator, they have simply taken the comments from all three commissioners, incorporated them into the document, and they all stood. And I can tell you, there were times when comments were made by one that weren't embraced by the other two. And I don't think those comments should have been reflected in his personnel file. So I would like to, the process only for the administrator is that the three of us today meet with our comments. And Rebecca be here to the, and by general consensus, we come to an agreement on what those comments are going to be. We develop the draft evaluation, it's given to Scott, and then at a future date,
We meet on.
we meet, sit down with him just like we do, but we don't meet with him today, but we.
Yeah, because the form's not there.
Yeah, and so anyways, the.
I thought that's what we were doing.
Yeah, okay, well, we've never done that before, and I just like to publicly state that that's going to be the process only for the county administrator. Do you understand that process,
Yep.
Scott?
Yep, I'm
Yeah,
I
fine
think
with
it's, I think
It's
it's
sort of
much-
what we all agreed on.
it. Right,
Yeah.
right.
Great, okay, so that's what we're gonna do today, Scott, when it comes time for you, and at some point you'll get back our general consensus evaluation, study that, give us your comments, and then we'll set another
We'll
date.
meet on.
Yeah, good, thank you.
All right, so now you do your motion for,
Yes, sir.
Well, we're
Yeah.
supposed to meet with Sankey, we're gonna.
I don't know if he's out.
Yeah, but
Oh, well,
He
Bob,
stepped out, but we got Bob.
so we got Bob right here.
we're gonna do C.
So I'm gonna go into executive session as permitted by MRSA Title I, Section 405, 6A for exempt employee evaluation. RCC Director Connor.
Second.
all those in favor?
All right,
Aye.
so we got